Hello, we've opened up the broadcast for the Bryant Lane Improvement Project. It's and this will be a virtual open house, so I appreciate everyone being able to join us. I am Steve Dodge, the Assistant City Engineer, and Greg Anderson is on the line from Short Elliott Hendrickson, and he is the project manager. So we won't get started until we keep viewing entries into our virtual webinar. For those signing on, I'm Steve Dodge, the Assistant City Engineer, and there's some instructions here on how you can answer or ask questions as we go through the presentation. And at the end of the presentation, I have the engineer from SEH, Dustin, will be able to go through the questions, and we'll go through a Q&A in the end at the end of the presentation. So keep your questions coming. We'll get to them at the end of the presentation. I hope the presentation, kind of straight and to the point, and it's going to be adjusted from last time we spoke based on comments received. So how are we doing on entries? Have they kind of slowed down now, or are they still coming in?
There are 9 people signed up so far.
Thank you, Dustin. I see some raised hands and question marks. I don't know what those mean, but Dustin.
That I'm not sure. I think people are just experimenting.
Yep, that's okay. I see some of the names that I expect to be on here. Have we had anyone sign on in the last minute? We'll get started soon. So has it been a minute or two before anyone signed on now, Dustin? Should we get started?
Looks like we lost an attendee. I'd give it a few more minutes. We had quite a few registrations, so we'll give it a couple more minutes, I think.
Okay. We're just gonna wait. So the amount of registrations that we had, our registrants are making sure they can get on. Thanks for joining us, and I'm glad we could have a more a true webinar this time, with everyone being able to hear me and see the screen and the presentation. I'm Steve Dodge, the Assistant City Engineer. I'll be presenting tonight for the Bryant Lane Improvement Project, Majestic Woodlands. How are we doing, Dustin?
We've got a few more attendees. We're up to 13 now. We're having a couple of audio issues.
Okay.
I don't know if we're looking into it.
Okay, we'll pause. We're gonna let people get their systems running properly before we get started. Just give us a minute or two. This is Steve Dodge, Assistant City Engineer. You're here for the Bryant Lane virtual open house to go over the feasibility report before the public hearing next on February 22nd on a Monday. And we are just waiting for last registrants to get signed up here. And also there's a couple audio issues. So we're trying to help them work that out. So just give us a minute.
I think we figured out the audio issue. It was possibly a registration error or something along those lines. Everybody else is able to hear.
Okay. So we should be able to get started soon, you think, Dustin?
Yes, I'm just confirming the registration number right now to compare what we have for attendees.
I hope everyone's staying warm. This is quite a polar front coming down. I've even kind of set aside my cross-country skiing, and a little too cold for me to even do that. Hmm. So for those that have just recently gotten on, I'm Steve Dodge, the Assistant City Engineer. I'll be presenting tonight the feasibility report, and we're doing this informational meeting to inform you, the neighborhood of Majestic Woodlands, on the Bryant Lane project, so that we can receive further comment prior to the public hearing or at the public hearing on February 22nd at the next council meeting. Okay, Dustin, I think we're 7 after. We should probably get started. Maybe
Yep, we've got
those that are
a few more attendees, so we should be good to go. Somebody can straggle in later too.
okay. Yep, that'll work. Okay, I'll just go over the virtual house open agenda. We will get started now with the presentation, and we're just going to give you a project overview, what the proposed improvements are, update storm improvements, and then of course we'll go over the costs and assessments, and finally the schedule. And then at the end we will do a Q&A, and this is a webinar format, so in order to get your questions in, you'll have to message them in and type them in. And Dustin, would you like to go over that briefly, or one of you go over the how they enter in a question?
Yep, so we'll have a question and answer session at the end of the presentation. To type in a question, you can do that at any point during the presentation. You grab the orange arrow tab to expand or collapse the control panel, and then you click the question tab, and you should be able to type in a question in that area. And once you do that, I will be able to see it on my end. to ask a question audio version. When the meeting is ended, all the users will be unmuted and anyone can ask an audio question at the end.
Okay, so we'll not only via message, but in the end, once we get through all the Q&A messages, we'll also do an audio segment where we'll be able to also do Q&A via audio, and just in case anyone had any issues with messaging or wanted to have a little more in-depth question and answer session that's can't be done by messaging. So I am Steve Dodge, the Assistant City Engineer. I believe many of you may have met me already. And I am working with the project manager, who is Greg Anderson of Short Elliott Hendrickson, on this project. And who you're hearing is Dustin, and he is the project engineer from SCH. Of course, this is part of the 2021 pavement management program, the Bryant Lane area improvements. It's part of the Majestic Woodlands development area and this is the virtual open house meeting, information meeting prior to the improvement hearing on February 22nd with City Council. So this is to inform you, the neighborhood, on the improvements in the feasibility report. General project overview. You have the Majestic Woodlands neighborhood with Bryant Lane as the main street going through, and Bradbury Court and Burke Trail, and a little bit of Brent Avenue. And the entrance, Blackberry Trail, is also curbed. And so that was along with the Majestic Woodlands area. So that was included as part of the improvement project. The council authorized the feasibility report back in September of 2020. Your Majestic Woodland development area was built mostly in 97 and 98 with an urban section, surmountable curb with sewer, water, and storm improvements and ponds. So it's a very well done development. There was pavement maintenance done after development in 2003 and 4. There was a crack seal and a seal coat project that occurred. And then after we got approval to do a feasibility report, we had Ron Intertech go out and do potholing of streets, and then the potholing, looking at the subgrade soils, the gravel and the pavement, in the conditions of them, they recommended a full reconstruction. And what you were finding in the subgrade soils, where there were many areas where they had higher fines, silt and clay content level. There was one or two that did not, but when we look at a project that was out of 8 borings, so out of the 8 borings, we look at a project as an overall when they do recommendations, because we do projects by neighborhood. The proposed street improvements are to have a full street section, and that includes, if you start at the top, 4 inches of pavement, and you have 6 inches of gravel below that, and then 2 feet of sand with fabric to separate the road from the frost susceptible soils that were found in the borings, and make it a long-lasting road. And then we put drain tiles on each end of the road in order to make sure we have free draining road, and we solve water issues. And the development right now has surmountable curb, and when we go through and reconstruct a project, we normally will recommend B618 curb and gutter. That's the barrier curb that goes straight up. That is not written in stone. That's just a recommendation by staff based on maintenance and stormwater. And trying for maintenance, it sure helps the plows stay within the road area and not get up into boulevards. From stormwater, it helps make sure the water stays on the street when it's when it's running down the gutter. Uh, the one benefit to barrier curb going in is each driveway and entrance gets a curb cut, and that curb cut is only 1.25 inches high, which means that it'll be a lot less than a 4-inch drive over you have right now at your driveway entrance with the curb. It'd just be like 1.25 inches, so it's a much smoother transition. So that being said, if you want to drive down on 60th Street, just west of Babcock, off the county road there, that had a spawnable curb project, or originally had spawnable curb, and B618 went in, and you can see the driveway entrances and how things worked out. And it's really something that is a recommendation by us, but if there's a strong opinion by the residents that they still want to keep mountable curb, we can put that back in. Driveways and a reconstruct driveway aprons will need to be reconstructed, and the sanitary sewer and water main are in good shape, and those were televised, and or the sanitary sewer is televised, and the water main was verified to be ductile iron, which is a newer class of water main. So, and then there's the minor repairs that will occur on water main is we would replace hydrants to bring them up to current standards, and gate valves need to have bolts, stainless steel bolts installed on them. And then there's some lateral storm sewer replacement, but storm sewer in general is only minor updates are going to be to that. The main update to the storm sewer system is shown on this slide, and on where my hand is, excuse me, where my hand is, and you have the water quality treatment structure that is being proposed in right along Bryant Lane, just off of Blackberry Trail, and also on Burke Trail before you go down to the pond. So we want to add water quality features that treat the water up at the street level. That allows the ponds to last longer and be more healthy. And it also allows city to come by with a vac truck and easily clean out the water quality structures that were placed behind the curb. So there'll be very, very minor storm sewer improvements. It's really mostly just the shallow lateral storm sewer that crosses the street. As we replace the road, we want to replace the shallow pipe because that could be damaged with construction. And there are a couple of stormwater outlets under review, mainly on the Blackberry Trail, the city pond up here in the northeast corner of Blackberry Trail and Bryant Lane. That will be figured out during the preliminary design and final design. And we did do a survey, and we do have some sump pumps in the area that were reported. There was a backyard erosion issue. So those things we do want to know about after a hard rain. There quite a few properties have irrigation systems out here. Excuse me. One property has a invisible fence reported, but I'm guessing you have more than that. And the rain garden was suspended due to some of the poor soils that were found in the area in the Brown report, and no properties reported sewer or water issues. So the preliminary cost for the funding, the cost estimate is, street improvements are at just over $2 million. Storm improvements are around $300,000. And the utility improvements that we discussed were $122,000. And as far as the policy goes, Blackberry Trail is 100% being funded by the city. And the reason that is because Lot 1 is all city property. And that pretty much covers the length of Blackberry Trail on the east side. Well, Lot 60 is part of the, officially the underlying ownership is the business complex on Upper 55th and the Blackberry Business Complex. And but that is also a city maintained pond on the west side of the road. And this whole Lot 60 is all encumbered by easement for city use and purposes, all except for a 30-foot section. So for that reason, the city pretty much controls the west side and the east side of the entrance as far as property and or easement. And we are proposing the city pick up 100% of that cost for Blackberry Trail. So that is not in the included in the street assessments for the Majestic Woodlands Bryant Lane project. And the assessment policy is that we assess per lot single family equally amongst the assessment area. The city property is also being assessed, but they pay twice the front foot rate that a single family rate would. And then it should be noted that the utilities are not assessed. That's paid by city utility funds, sewer and water. And the reconstruction assessment policy is 35% for reconstruction of street and storm improvements combined. And I wanted to note to everyone that the city council is reviewing the current assessment policy. So we've revised our schedule, as you note in the end, in order to accommodate that. So with the assessment policy that we have today, with the 35% accessible to the properties that are on the project and have driveways to the project, it would be a $9,491 assessment per single family parcel. The special benefit analysis was done by an independent appraiser. Noted that they could see a value of added value of up to 14,000, but with the current project estimates, we're not even going to get near that high. And with good bid, which means that we take the lower of the two, so the proposed assessment is 9,491 currently, and the special assessments would the way we've adjusted the schedule now, we would assess after the project is constructed, and and that would include so the assessments will reflect the actual construction cost of the project. You know, so if we get competitive bids and a positive construction season, the assessment amount could go down just based off of those two items. But also we're going to assess at the after construction, because the council is reviewing the assessment policy. If they make any assessment policy adjustments, they would guide us whether we would make a correction to your assessment, and it could be at a lower amount. The multi-family residential, as I mentioned, which is a city property, pays a higher assessment rate. We did hear back from Xcel Energy, and I got really good news. What they let us know is that because we're doing a reconstruction project in your neighborhood, that the lighting in your neighborhood, which is the old style, is qualified to be updated at no additional cost to you or really the city because the city just has to do restoration, which we're doing anyways with the project. So what that means is because it qualifies as part of the because the project that we're doing qualifies you to have an updated lighting system. What would you pay the standard service rate right now with on your utility bill? And we did a quick analysis, and this isn't an exact number, but it's going to be approximately $1 per house more per quarter to get a new LED lighting system in a neighborhood. And these new LED lights and coach light systems are nice because they have no glass in them anymore. So no one can break glass, and they don't have to be repaired. And the LED lights last obviously for a much longer time than the current old style lights. So we'll continue to work with Excel on this progress of getting LED lighting to replace the lighting you have along with the project. And it's very good news that it qualified because the project is undergoing. The general schedule is we've already reached the point where we're having our information meeting here virtually on February 11th. We have the council will receive the council is going to hold a hearing order the project here on February 22nd, and they'll authorize us to go out for plans and specs. And then we'll bid the project, and then sometime in April, by the time we get to April, we'll be holding an award of the project with council, and then we will begin construction in May, June. But what I'll do is once we, after we award the project, these need to be flipped, I believe. After we award the project and sometime around in April, we would then hold another information meeting. I have that on the schedule. And that's because the bids may come in positively and it may change the assessment evaluation and lower the assessments. So we want to have an information meeting to talk about the bids and how they came in, how it relates to the cost of the project, but also at this meeting, what typically happens is we're going into construction very shortly. So I will have a start letter that goes out to the neighborhood that explains a lot of things in a letter, a couple pages long about construction and what you can expect. But at the same time, it's nice to hold a meeting so people can ask some questions like this, either by message or by voice, and we can resolve any issues that may be out there right before construction. But then we'll go into construction throughout the summer. Usually we'll start in May, June, and this will usually be about a 2.5 month project. And then we will hold, as I said, the assessment hearing won't be held until the fall. And so we'll bring it back to council. They will set a hearing in the fall. It'll be based off of final costs for the project. And then we'll also get guidance at that point if anything in the assessment policy has changed between now and then, and whether they are asking us to apply that to your project. And then we'll have the final assessment hearing. And then when we go into assessments, those are, as mentioned earlier, those can be on a 10-year, either pay in full within 30 days after we hold the assessment hearing in the fall, or it goes on to the county taxes. And in 2022, January 1st is when the interest would start. And also it would be a 10-year plan. Your taxes are paid twice a year. So that would, and so that's how the assessments in general will get paid back, and you can pay in full at any time during that process, 10-year process, but you have to pay the county the interest for that year when you pay in full. So at this point, Dustin, I think we'll start opening up for the message questions that came in and see if we can answer those.
Yeah, I've got a few questions here. The first one is previously Stephen indicated that the homeowners' yards would be impacted due to the curb change. How does the city manage irrigation systems and invisible fence systems that are impacted? Is this included with the total cost, or are the homeowners responsible?
Yep, that's a very good question. And yeah, the curb change is not going to really add a large amount of disturbance area difference. The reconstruction of the road and going 3 feet down to put 2-foot sand section in and gravel and pavement, that is what's really causing the disturbance. The point behind building that style of road is because of the subgrade soils that were recognized in the geotechnical report, and to make sure we have a long-lasting road and not roads that are being get in deterioration rate pretty quickly within the 12 to 20-year cycle, and then we're going back on this short cycle of meeting each other. And I'd rather be on a longer cycle where we're doing more mill and overlays and more seal coats and crack seals, and so you'll have a much longer lasting road. But the curb change, if we go to barrier curb, that's what's recommended, is not what's causing the major disturbance area. It's the reconstruction of the road that does that. When it comes to the obstructions in the right of way, which are the irrigation and landscaping and irrigate and invisible fence, that is the responsible of the homeowner. So we would coordinate with everyone ahead of time, but your irrigations you'd want to have those capped off back, or you could let our contractor go by and cut it, and then it could be capped off afterwards by your zones. But any landscaping you'd want saved, you'd want to pull it back and save that yourself, like you have some retaining wall or something, or landscaping that you want to save, or vegetation, like you have some special plants you want saved. In the boulevard, you'd want to pull those out because our contractor, constructs the road and the project, and the items in the boulevard, like that would be your responsibility. Those are good questions.
All right, we've got a few more. What is the interest rate for the 10-year term for the assessment?
The interest rate will be determined at when we work with the finance department shortly now, to when we set up when we start setting up the assessments. But so it's ranged greatly from the low 2% up to 4.5%, and it depends on when we go to bond at that time, what the our bonding rate and bonding company gives us at that time.
All right, we've got another comment here that says Excel just replaced the lights a couple weeks ago. We will work with them throughout the process, so if they did replace the bulbs, we'll take a look at that and have them take a look at what they've done as far as maintenance too. Another one is, how long will the project take, and for how long will the road be inaccessible to homeowners?
Okay, the way the reconstruction projects work are we put in our specifications with the contractor that we got to have basically accessibility to your driveway. And pretty much at all times. When you won't have accessibility directly to your driveway is when the contractor is digging up the road right in front of your house, and they usually feet a day as they go up a road. So you'll see them coming when they're doing the excavation, but they backfill behind that in the same day. They gravel it in the same day. So you will have access to your, so it's usually typically like a partial or full day of the whole project where that would impact you. And then you'd have access back to your driveway once it gets graveled. The other time, other than that, it's just the contractor working on utilities here and there and storm sewer laterals here and there, hydrants. It's just so you'll have access to your driveway while they're working on all these items and putting in the stormwater quality devices. So, and then what happens is we get into like the curb and gutter phase. Once all the roads reconstructed, they'll do all the curb and gutter at once. That's when you have a 3-day period where you will not be able to get in and out of your driveway, but you will be able to park alongside the curb and walk in. So you still, and so we'll be coordinating with you by letter and by email because we use a listserv system that is that you can sign up for at any time on the city notify me page. And that's been already provided to you in prior letters I've sent. And so we'll be communicating you on the bigger project items where you're gonna be impacted, like when curb goes in by letter. And then if you have a concrete driveway, you can add another 5 to 7 days once they do your concrete driveway that would you'd have to park in the street for that too and allow that to cure before you open up and drive on it. So so those are the two major times that you'd be interrupted. But other than that, it's an ongoing operation, and you have temporary, if not full, access to your driveway every day, and it will always be available to you 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. in the morning. That's what we have written in the specs, so that people can still have full access to their driveway 7 p.m. to 7 a.m.
Here's another one. Is it possible that the bids could come in higher than your estimates? And what is the historical precedence of this? We put together numbers based on, well, surrounding data in different cities and also previous Timber Grove projects. So the bids could potentially come in higher, but we have contingencies built in as well. So the occurrence is not very likely to happen. It could, but it's not likely.
We typically get competitive bids in McGrove Heights. There's been less, I can probably count the occasions on one hand in this 16 years I've been here where we may have had a bid come in a little bit high, but typically we get fairly competitive bids. We got good relations with contractors, and that also helps.
Streets, here's another one. Streets will be widened. Are they widened on both sides or just one side? And when we designed the street,
go ahead.
you want to take this one?
No, you go ahead. It's just, I think that's a surmountable curb versus the barrier curb is really what's going on. We're keeping the street width the same if you go pretty much at the back of curb. So that's the key, Dustin, but you can go ahead and explain that.
Yep, when we lay the road out, we try to match the center line as close as we can, just so the impacts outside and everybody's driveways, they're minimal. We match the elevations as closely as we can to the softwares let us do a lot in regards to that. So if we match it as close as we can, and like Steve said, the actual width of the drivable surface will not change that much, but there is a slight deviation from the surmountable to the B618 curb. What is the goal of the reviewing the assessment policy? Would we be subject to an increased percentage of the costs?
That is not the goal of the council. The goal of the council is to review the assessment policy based on feedback that the assessments feel high. So that's what they're working on. And so there's no anticipation assessments will go higher. There's anticipation that if they did make a change, that they would go lower.
Where will we be parking our cars when this is occurring?
That is always a challenge, and what we do is we work that out with the contractor when he gets here, and how he install, or how he, mainly it's when he put the curb in. That's the big item, right? And so we work with the contractor when he gets there about how they're going to install the curb, and where people will park. And there are times when you may have to walk a block or two in order to park your car, uh, especially in a big loop road like this, with long segments, in order to accommodate that one day of installing curb. So we'll work that out with the contractor when they get there.
Another one here is what happens to mailboxes during construction?
Yeah, so the contractor works directly with the post office, and a mailbox bank is set up at the entrance. They have the post office picks the location, and then the contractor sets up the bank, and then everyone gets their mail at a bank when they enter the project, until the end of the project when we put all the mailboxes back up. And your mailboxes will be salvaged, by the way, and set aside. Um, Typically, the contractor will just place it up on your driveway and your property. Um, so you get the same mailbox back.
Another one here is for specialty driveways, how are those handled? Say it's brick or stamped or anything out of the ordinary concrete or bituminous.
Yeah, so every once in a while we run into a unique driveway that's been done with special, uh, construction methods, or design, and so we put a contingency uh, in our bids in order to work with uh, uh, driveways. So we have a driveway contingency to work with specialty driveways in order to do our best to work with the homeowner and try to replace what is there to the best that we can in kind. Now, the honesty behind it is that it's pretty hard to match any concrete that has been and that has some fading to it. So but we'll work with the homeowner, and we'll replace it in accordance with what we agree to with them, and we'll hire professionals to match what they got to the best we can.
Another one here is if a resident would like to upgrade or alter their driveway, is there any sort of program in place for that? If they don't want a bituminous seam or they don't want the mismatched concrete?
Yes. So if you a person that wants your full driveway from curb all the way to your garage, then what we do is I started a driveway replacement program based off of same comment I got the first couple of years I was here back in 2006 and 7. In that driveway program, what it does is we do a calculation of all the driveway disturbances on the project, and we've determined a um, average amount for each driveway, just like we would assessments, because we average out the assessments when we assess, and we take 35%. So we average out the driveways, doesn't matter if it's concrete or bituminous, on the whole project. We take 35% of that, and then that's your driveway credit that you can get back. And that's just so that someone doesn't, when we're assessing, we only do 35%. So when we give credit back, we can only do 35% in order to be fair to those that don't replace their whole driveway.
All right, we've got
But
quite a
I'll
few
just
more here.
add that there is an agreement that goes with that, so that you know the amount, you know what you're signing for, and you also put dates on it when we'd like your driveway to be done, because you have to do it so that we can get restoration done along with the rest of the project. So usually when that occurs, we'll give you dates of when we want your private contractor to get that driveway done.
Here's another one. What is the total cost to homeowners with barrier curbs or without barrier curbs?
There is no cost difference to the owner or the project. They're very similar in price when it comes to bids.
How will the landscaping in the islands be handled? Will that be a city cost or is that part of the assessment?
That is a very good question. And any island dealing with Blackberry Trail, that entrance, and it's not associated with your development, would be handled by that. But the islands that associate with your development, we would probably want to meet with your representatives of your neighborhood or association, what you have. And I've already had one gentleman reach out to me. His name was John Merton from your neighborhood, and I know him because he's also works at Dakota County. And he asked about alignment of some of the entrances and whether maybe when we redo some curb in the area, we can work on improving some alignment issues he thought that they may have with traffic movement. That's a very good question. And I think I'd like to, if there are a couple representatives from your neighborhood or an associate want to speak with me, I think we might want to sit down and go over the islands and go over with John Mertens would be one of them I'd like to call a meeting with, go over traffic and the roadway and how things are aligned.
All right, we're running we've got quite a few questions here. This one was asked about 12 minutes ago. So I appreciate that the city will pick up 100% of the cost of Blackberry Trail. Part of, excuse me, part of Bryant Lane also abuts the stormwater pond opposite of lots 59 and 58. Would the city consider picking up a portion of the cost of the segment of Bryant Lane that abuts the pond?
59 and 58.
Yep, the parcels or lots.
Yeah, so what abuts them? I'm trying to understand the question.
Just wondering if the city would consider picking up a portion of the costs of the segment that abuts the pond.
For up here? Oh, so on Bryant Lane across from 58 and 59, on Bryant Lane here, the city is picking up this segment of Bryant Lane cost, and we're picking up an assessment. We're assessing ourselves basically at twice the rate at what you're getting paid. So we pull that out of your assessments. They're two different.
Another one here, are the roads on Majestic Woodlands considered public or private? And does that affect the cost of the homeowner?
The what on Majestic Woodlands?
Are the roads in Majestic Woodlands considered public or private?
Yeah, the roads at Majestic Woodlands are public roads. So that's why we're reconstructing them in accordance with within the right of way, within the accordance of our assessment policy.
If there were private roads, it would be the homeowners association is typically responsible for 100% of the construction costs.
That is correct. Yep. Yep. The city would not be in there redoing them if they're private roads. Yep.
Got a few more here, 6 more questions. During the time of construction, when cars are parked on the road, will the city have additional patrols there for if there are a lot of car break-ins?
We communicate with the public safety throughout the project weekly meetings, and if there is any uptick of any vandalism or people driving through that aren't part of the neighborhood, we anytime we can we can increase public safety presence out there.
Is replacing just the asphalt an option? If so, what would the cost be to the homeowners?
So I must not have had that. I thought we were going to add that. Maybe I grabbed the wrong PowerPoint, but
It was at the
bottom
very
line, we're
end.
doing enough. Okay, here it is. Okay, so there we go. So we added this discussion about full depth reclamation that I wanted to share because I've had a couple people from the development and residents in the area from your development call me about this. And so I'll just note that full depth reclamation was reviewed, but not recommended by a geotechnical consultant. And it was because of the poor subgrade soils that were out there and the deterioration of the pavement, was stripping from the bottom up. So that's what causes some deterioration in the road subgrade is when water can't get out of the subgrade. And so if you do a full depth reclamation, we looked at it, it still would be a $1.3 million project plus, and it would be about an $8,100 assessment per the assessment policy, which is 55% for an FDR, full depth reclamation style project. And one issue with the curb too is people ask about, well, we can save curb, and you can, but the way curb bidding goes is basically like this. If you end up replacing 25 to 35, about a third of your curb, or 25, a fourth to a third of your curb, at that point, you might consider replacing all of your curb, because hand forming curb up and down your block, one isn't the hand formed curb doesn't last as long as when a machine comes in and it's machine formed and done with better specifications. And two, the machine formed curb is about a third the cost of hand formed curb. So by the time you replace 25 to 30% of your curb, you might as well have replaced it all, because from just a curb price perspective, it's pretty much the same price. Anyways, we did look at FDR. These are the cost and assessment and results and geotechnical review, and so these are the reasons why it just makes for $9,400 plus dollars, just $1,400 more from your assessment viewpoint. From your costs, you can get a full reconstruction, which is a 50-year design road, instead of being back in your neighborhood on a regular basis, having this discussion every 20 years.
All right, we got a few more, Steve. Couple comments coming in about the curb. As far as grading impacts is one of them, and then they're also wondering if the decision has been made as far as the surmountable versus B618, and then we've got a couple more comments that are saying they would like the B618 curb.
Yeah, I think that again, the disturbance area won't be more. We're B618 versus surmountable. The decision is really, it's just my recommendation by staff that we would prefer to go B618 because we already know all the openings that are out there. And with the driveway cut that occurs with a B618 curb, you only have an 1.25 inch lip that you have to drive over when you get into your driveway. It's much smoother. And I gave the example of going to 60th Street west of Babcock. So we did that in 2016, I believe, 2017, right in that time frame. So it's a pretty recent project you can look at where we did this same transition. And the neighborhood had the same questions, and we eventually put in B618, and I've heard no complaints ever since the B618 went in. So that's the results we've been getting.
And one more, Steve, can you go through the process of the residents sending comments to City Council and the opportunity to speak at the February 22nd council meeting?
Sure. So on the schedule here at February 22nd is going to be the it's actually going. What we're going to do here is the council's going to hold the improvement hearing, and then after they hold and then so at that point what they do is they make a decision on the plans and specificate ordering the project. Remind me 1 second here on this schedule. It says January 25th, Dustin. There's something up with this schedule, but
I'm not sure. We'll have to take a look at it again.
hold on. I'll check it out. Open up something right now. Just give me 1 second. I just want to do a verification of something. Just gonna go into the project file. I'll be able to answer the question real quick. Yeah, so on 125, so what we did is the schedule needs to be updated, but in 125, we received the feasibility report and scheduled a hearing for February 22nd. So on February 22nd, what we're doing now is we're holding the improvement hearing, and we're going to order the project is the plan. So at the February 22nd meeting is the improvement hearing, and at this stage, you can, between now and then, you can write me or email me, and I will include your comments in the memo to council that I put together next week. So I need to kind of get any information you want me to include in a council packet. I mean, if you want me to include it in the write-up that I do, I'll need it by Tuesday at noon, because council packets are officially completed by Wednesday at noon, and already getting dealt to council. But if you want to submit anything after that, I will still bring it to council and present it. If we get it before 4 o'clock on Monday, February 22nd, the night of the hearing. And then other than that, you can show up at the hearing and you can present. Well, in this case, you got to be in person to present. So there is an in-person option at the council chambers using social distancing and CDC guidelines and masks to be able to show up at the meeting, but it has limited spacing, obviously. Or you in the letter that you're provided, there's a number you can call, and you can, by voice, you can call in and state whatever your concerns or approval for the project or whatever you'd like to share. So that's kind of the general process.
One more on lighting here. Is the light on Upper 55th getting replaced as well? We do not have that one on our map. Do you have any more information on it, Steve?
There is a light up here on there is a light up here on Upper 55th. We'll be coordinating that with Excel Energy. We were concentrating mainly on Majestic Woodlands lights, but I will continue that coordination with Excel. Thanks for the question.
All right, that's all I had for the typed in questions. We will open up,
Okay.
unmute everybody right now to answer any audio. And then you'll also need to unmute yourself before you ask the question. Does anybody have any questions?
Nice job, Steve. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Who's that?
This is Big Greg. Nice job on the presentation. Just want to make sure the microphones are working for the audience.
That's good. How's it going, Greg?
Chilly.
All right. Well, no one's piped in yet, so I think we're going to go to close the meeting, and I appreciate everyone attending. And please send questions my way or responses you may have for council my way, either via email, and that's all in the letter you're provided, or you can write directly to the city clerk. I think that option's also in there. Or you can get on city council lot in person and present using a mask and social distancing, or you can call in by voice. So you have several options in order to get us information and comments you may have for the project. No one's piped in voice-wise yet, so I think we'll call it a meeting. We appreciate everyone's time spent with us tonight, and stay warm. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.